Okay, Graham, here we are. We're out in the sunny Waikato today, and I think you wanted to have a bit of a chat about rumen dysfunction and SARA.
Well, firstly, what is SARA?
Okay, good question. So SARA stands for subacute ruminal acidosis. So in our cows, in their rumen, they have an ideal rumen pH, and we don't want that pH to fluctuate too much day in, day out, particularly from the perspective of the bugs that actually live in the rumen, and particularly the bugs that digest fibre. If the pH of the rumen starts getting a bit challenged, we start to find that the fibre digesting bugs are the first ones that actually die in that environment and don't cope. But obviously in our forage-based systems, they're very important bacteria for us, and we want them to do a good job. So remembering the rumen's an anaerobic fermentation chamber, okay, so when the cow eats some feed, it goes in, the bugs start breaking down that feed, and so the natural end product of those bugs breaking down feed are called natural organic acids, or volatile fatty acids you often hear it referred to. Now those acids are a good thing, okay, they should be there, but if for any reason they start to accumulate in the rumen rather than being transported out, that's actually going to start dropping the pH of the rumen, so it becomes more acidic, and that's when we start to see those problems. So there are a number of things that contribute to that. Over time, the reason why those acids might accumulate rather than clear, and essentially that's what SARA is. So it's not lactic acidosis, it's not a problem around lactic acid accumulating that's causing these cows to have a clinical case of acidosis. Okay, so it's not clinical acidosis, it's just that these cows were knocking out some of the fibre digesting bacteria, and as a result, feed conversion efficiency isn't what it could be in a grazed animal.
Okay, so when you, from a client's point of view, from a farmer's point of view, what do they need to look for to identify SARA in
Sure.
their herd?
Yeah, okay. So the things that we typically see is that cows just aren't grazing. They don't have the appetite that we expect they would have. So or you might be going around in a rotation and they've been grazing down to 1500, and suddenly one day you come out and they've come out at 1700. And there wasn't a pre-grazing difference, but they just didn't have the same appetite they would have had. For the amount of feed that they're consuming, they're probably not quite performing as well as you'd expect. They might just be 5% down on milk solids production for the amount of feed that you're actually popping in each day, making available to them, and they're actually consuming as well. So they're the things that you tend to see. You're probably noticing that the cow's just a little bit off. Sometimes you might see a little bit of milk fat depression show up with that as well. Other times, often what you'll see as well is you'll see some pretty runny feces as well, some pretty runny stools, because you're getting a lot more water actually coming through into the intestine of the cow. So they're the sorts of signs that you will see out in the field.
So like a good rate of passage is a good sign that you could have SARA in your herd?
Yeah, it could be. So there are a number of other factors that are associated, but if those cows are just underperforming, that's often SARA. So instead of being able, the fibre digesting bugs being present and actually extracting energy from that fibre that they're degrading, we're probably seeing just a little bit more of the fibre in their poos as well, so in their faeces, undigested feed particles coming through, and that's the reason why they're just not performing as well as they should. So if we can address the issue of rumen dysfunction around SARA, we often find that we can actually get that nice little milk production response again.
Okay, so now we've identified the herd's got SARA, how do we go about fixing it?
Sure. Well, it's one of those things, it's actually pretty relatively simple to actually get about it. So there are a couple of things you might want to do. First one is that often, in spring when we've got a lot of high sugar spring ryegrass, there's not a lot of physically effective fibre in there. So offering some physically effective fibre back in the ration again, all you're trying to do is actually help the acids that are being produced is actually using, when the rumen contracts, the physically effective fibre just actually helps to transport the acids to the wall of the rumen so that they get transported out rather than accumulating in the rumen. So physically effective fibre back in the ration can be really helpful. You don't want it to be too much because we don't want cows filling up on things like hay. In spring we want them to eat as much grass as they can, so not a whole lot. Another thing that we've found to be really successful is an appropriate rumen buffer, so a mineral buffer. So we use a lot of a product called Acid Buff. It works really well, it stays in the rumen for a longer period of time. Whereas bicarb, when cows consume bicarb, it reacts very quickly. Okay, so within an hour after consuming some bicarb in a meal, that will be gone, whereas products like Acid Buff stay in the rumen over a period of time, and so it keeps buffering those hydrogen ions for a longer period of time, which is what helps to stabilise that rumen pH so it doesn't drop down too low over time.